So, the Voidwalker is your choice of subclass. If you want to manipulate gravity and the natural forces of nature to your will, this is the subclass for you. In this video, I'll be breaking down the Void Warlock so that you can start creating builds or improve your general game knowledge. A disclaimer before we begin. Destiny is a game that constantly changes and evolves. As such, the information in this video may become less accurate the further in the future you are watching this. Therefore, I would always double check to ensure that the information presented is still accurate. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Before we get into the specifics of Voidwalker, I think it's important to get an overview of the Void subclass in general. Void is one of the three light subclasses alongside Solar and Arc. Void, although not as potent as Solar, still performs really well in the current sandbox. It has verbs to debuff enemies, crowd control, add clear, provide healing, and extra resistances. It is the only subclass that also allows you to go invisible. This allows it to perform generally well and has a way to deal with most situations. Now that we have a rough overview on the Void subclass, let's begin by defining the subclass verbs that's relevant for Void. Firstly, let's talk about Devour. While Devour is active, killing an enemy grants you 100 HP. The base duration of this buff is 10 seconds, but it can be extended to 15 seconds through the Echo of Persistence. Scoring kills also extends its duration by 5 seconds or 8 seconds with the Echo of Persistence, and it also grants grenade energy. The values are shown on screen. The next one to talk about is Overshield. Overshield grants you an extra 45 HP for 10 seconds on top of your health and shields. Overshield also reduces the damage that you receive from combatants by 50%. You cannot gain Overshield while in a healing rift. The final buff that Void has is Invisibility. This turns you invisible to enemies and they will not be able to determine your location. To other guardians, your model will simply be invisible with the exception of a light shimmer, and you will not constantly ping their radar. Any offensive actions will immediately end your invisibility. Your radar range is also limited to 24 meters while invisible. The first Void debuff that you can apply on opponents is Suppression. Suppression means that the target is knocked out of any active abilities and can't activate abilities for as long as suppression persists. This includes supers, and super will not be refunded if you are suppressed out of it. Enemy combatants will be disoriented and any overload champions will become stunned upon being suppressed. The next debuff that you can apply on enemies is Volatile. When you afflict a target with Volatile, they will be afflicted with unstable Void energy and explode, dealing 160 Void damage to nearby enemies upon taking 190 damage or on death. It will harmlessly expire after a certain amount of time has passed. The exact value has not been determined for PvE yet. Volatile can only be reapplied 1 second after detonation. Barrier champion shields are able to be damaged while Volatile rounds are active, stunning the champion when destroyed. The final Void debuff is Weaken, which makes afflicted targets take 15% more damage and have 20% decreased movement speed for 5 seconds. Combatants are less accurate. The class-specific pickup that the Void subclass uses is the Void Breach. Picking up a Void Breach grants 12.5% class ability energy on pickup. Allies do not receive any Void Breach you create and they last 25 seconds before disappearing. Creating a Void Breach incurs a 5-second cooldown upon creation. Now that we have explained all the Void verbs and pickups, let's continue by talking about all the Void grenades, as this is also shared by all the Void subclasses. Axion Bolt Grenades releases 2 bolts that seeks nearby enemies. This grenade does 575 base damage and has a base cooldown of 152 seconds. Magnetic Grenades will stick on impact and then explode twice, with each explosion doing 472.5 base damage. The base cooldown is 105 seconds. Scatter Grenades releases 8 drones on impact. Each drone explodes twice, dealing 115 base damage with the first explosion and 69 base damage with the second explosion. The base cooldown is 105 seconds. Spike Grenades will stick to surfaces, emitting a torrent of Void Light after 0.783 seconds, with the Echo of Remnants reducing this activation time by 0.083 seconds. This Void Light deals 80 base damage every 0.217 seconds, up to 19 times over 3.9 seconds, or 26 times over 5.43 seconds with the Echo of Remnants. The base cooldown is 121 seconds. Suppressor Grenades will apply suppression on detonation for 10 seconds to any enemy hit by the grenade's explosion. It deals 863 base damage and its base cooldown is 121 seconds. Void Wall Grenades deal 171 damage 0.117 seconds after detonation. This activation time is reduced by 0.051 seconds with the Echo of Remnants. The Void Light takes 18 times, dealing 120 damage every 0.117 seconds over 3.48 seconds. This is increased to 28 times every 0.051 seconds over 5.63 seconds with the Echo of Remnants. The base cooldown is 121 seconds. The final grenade is the Vortex Grenade. This grenade deals 173 base damage on initial detonation and pulls any nearby enemies after 0.833 seconds or 0.767 seconds with the Echo of Remnants. This will continue to do 69 base damage every 0.27 seconds up to 17 times over 4.2 seconds to enemies inside it. This increases to 25 times over 6.45 seconds with the Echo of Remnants. Now that we have covered the grenades, let's talk about our melee ability. Pocket Singularity sends out a Void Orb that seeks out the nearest enemy. On hit, it deals 235 base damage and applies Volatile while knocking them back. The AoE has a 2.7 meter range, with the range decreasing to 1.5 meters if it hits a surface instead. The base cooldown is 90 seconds. For our class abilities, the Voidwalker has access to 2. You have your standard Healing and Empowering Rifts. Healing Rifts heal 40 HP per second. If you're at full health, it will give you overshields at a rate of 3 HP per second up to 15 HP. The base cooldown of the Rift is 82 seconds. Your second class ability is Empowering Rift. This improves outgoing weapon damage by 20%. The base cooldown of Empowering Rift is the same as Healing Rift at 82 seconds. Both rifts last for 15 seconds and you gain 20% damage resist during the casting animation. The final abilities that we will need to discuss would be the 3 Voidwalker supers, Nova Bomb Cataclysm, Nova Bomb Vortex, and Nova Warp. Let's start with what is shared between the supers. All 3 supers have a 90% damage resistance when you are in your super. Both Nova Bombs also share the same base cooldown of 500 seconds, with Nova Warp having a slightly higher cooldown at 556 seconds. Now with that out of the way, let's begin talking about Nova Bomb Cataclysm. Activating the super releases a slow-moving, tracking Nova Bomb that detonates on impact, dealing up to 4,680 base damage to enemies within the explosion radius. It also releases 4 Seekers on detonation, which will also slowly track enemies and deal up to 936 base damage in a small radius each. Nova Bomb and the Seekers can be detonated in mid-air by dealing damage towards it. The caster deals significantly more damage towards it. Nova Bomb Vortex releases a fast-moving, arcing Nova Bomb that detonates on impact, dealing up to 4,290 base damage to enemies within the explosion radius. It creates a singularity after 0.43 seconds of detonating, instantly pulling enemies inwards. The singularity deals 75 base damage per tick. The speed of ticks and the overall duration of the super has yet to be tested. The final Voidwalker super that we need to learn about is Nova Warp. Nova Warp has a base duration of 24 seconds. Your light attacks deal up to 776 base damage in a 5 meter radius. You can charge it by holding the fire button for 0.6 seconds, linearly increasing its damage up to 120% and increasing its radius as well. Fully charged hits apply Volatile. The heavy attack performs a dash, draining super energy to move in the direction of input. Alright, we have covered all the abilities that are available to a Voidwalker. Let's talk about things that may add more abilities or modify existing abilities, which are aspects and fragments. I will cover the aspects first. Voidwalkers have access to 3 aspects, each one giving you the ability to slot 2 fragments. You may freely choose 2 to use at any given time. These aspects are Child of the Old Gods, Chaos Accelerant, and Feed the Void. Let's begin with Child of the Old Gods. Child of the Old Gods allows casting a rift to create a Void Soul, which stands idle next to you for up to 25 seconds. Damaging an enemy with weapon sends out the Void Soul towards the enemy, creating a 10 meter draining field that deals 43 damage every 0.7 seconds for 9.25 seconds, as well as weakening them for 5 seconds. The Void Soul has 150 HP and can be destroyed. Depending on the class ability, it grants 4% grenade and melee energy for Healing Rift, or 25 HP for Empowering Rift every 1.4 seconds while leeching. It also grants class ability energy based on enemy rank and when an enemy dies within its radius. These values are provided on screen. Chaos Accelerant allows you to hold your grenade button to overcharge it, enhancing the grenade. Vortex grenades gain a 70% radius increase, burns for an additional second, and pulls enemies inwards 0.216 seconds earlier. Axion bolts add an additional Seeker and the Seekers travel further. Enhanced Scatter Grenades causes the submunitions to track enemies within 5 meters. Finally, Enhanced Magnetic Grenades releases a short-range Void Blast that applies Volatile. You may hold grenades for 4.5 seconds. Finally, let's talk about Feed the Void. With this aspect equipped, Void ability kills grant Devour. All sources of Devour now grant Enhanced Devour. Activating Enhanced Devour restores 200 HP. Kills while Enhanced Devour is active restores 200 HP, grants 100% increased grenade energy, and extends its duration by 5 seconds. It also grants grenade energy on kill with the values being displayed on the screen. Now, we move on to the final part of this deep dive into the Voidwalker, which are the fragments. Voidwalkers share the same fragments with the other 2 Void subclasses, Sentinels and Night Stalkers. If you already know what these fragments do by watching those subclass breakdowns, then you may feel free to skip this section. I will try to cover all the fragments concisely but still delivering the relevant details to you. I will also note any stat buffs or debuffs that the fragments confer to you on screen. Let's begin alphabetically with the Echo of Succession. Echo of Fixation allows your finishers to apply Volatile to nearby enemies. Killing enemies afflicted with Volatile spawns a Void Breach. Echo of Dilation sets your crouch speed to 4 meters per second and grants you double radar resolution while crouched. Echo of Domineering allows suppressing an enemy to grant 30 mobility and a 4% forward movement speed bonus for 10 seconds and refills the ready weapon. The buff's duration serves as a cooldown. Killing suppressed enemies grants a Void Breach. Echo of Exchange grants grenade energy on melee kills based on enemy rank. Tier 1 combatants grant 7.5%, Tier 2 11%, Tier 3 16.25%, and Tier 4 bosses and mini-bosses 25%. Echo of Expulsion allows void ability kills to cause enemies to explode, dealing 160 base damage in a 7-meter radius. Echo of Harvest allows kills on weakened enemies to create an orb of power that grants 2.5% super energy. It also creates a Void Breach. A 10-second cooldown is incurred when an orb of power is created. Echo of Instability causes grenade kills to grant volatile rounds to your weapons for 11 seconds. Volatile rounds make any hit with a void weapon apply volatile. Echo of Leeching causes melee kills to begin health regeneration for you and any nearby allies. Echo of Obscurity allows finishers to grant invisibility for 4.8 seconds. Echo of Persistence causes void buffs to generally last 50% longer. Echo of Provision causes dealing grenade damage to grant melee energy. It may only activate once per damage instance, and hitting multiple enemies counts as one instance. Scatter, Spike, Void Wall, and Vortex grenades grants 3% melee energy per instant, and Axion, Magnetic, and Suppressor grenades grant 8% melee energy per instance. Echo of Remnants will cause your Void grenades to last longer. Spike grenades last 40% longer, Void Wall grenades last 60% longer, and Vortex grenades last 50% longer. We do not currently have the values for the Axion Bolt grenade. Echo of Reprisal causes being surrounded by 3+ enemies in an 8-meter radius to grant additional super energy per kill. Each enemy after the 3rd and up to the 7th grants even more super energy each. A 1-second cooldown is incurred between activations. Echo of Starvation allows picking up an orb of power to grant Devour for 5 seconds. Echo of Undermining causes Void Grenades to apply Weaken on hit for 5 seconds. Lastly, Echo of Vigilance grants a Void Overshield for 5 seconds upon killing an enemy while at critical health. This overshield duration is increased to 7.5 seconds with the Echo of Persistence. An 8-second cooldown is incurred after activation. Alright, this should cover pretty much all you need to know about Voidwalkers to get started build crafting or playing around with the subclass. I will leave a link to the Destiny Data Compendium if you want to perform further research. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and enable notifications to ensure that you do not miss any of my uploads. The next guide will be posted next Thursday and will be covering the Night Stalker. Thank you for watching and happy farming.